Thank you, everyone, for coming to the event this morning. My name is Nick Kazikoff. I am the chair of MADE and chair of the organizing committee for Edmonton Design Week. We're extremely excited about this event and the opportunity to collaborate with d.talks. Shannon and Amy have been fantastic coming up from Calgary. I know there's also some folks from Calgary as well, too, who are here this morning. So thank you for making the trip up to Edmonton for Edmonton Design Week. I'm going to start us off with an Alberta land acknowledgement, and then I will hand the mic over to Shannon, who will do some intro to our speakers and kind of discuss AI plus design, friend or foe. So we acknowledge the traditional lands and territories of the Indigenous people who have lived on these lands and have taken care of them since time immemorial. What became known as the province of Alberta in 1905 is also the traditional and ancestral home to many Indigenous peoples, and for that we are honored to have shared this land with them since Treaties 6, 7, and 8 were entered into. Alberta is also the historical Northwest Métis homeland, which includes 5 territories. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. So thank you again for coming out, and I will hand the mic over to Shannon.
Well, welcome, friends. It is so great to see everyone in the room today, and we really thank you for being here. My name is Shannon. I am a co-founder of the Design Talks Institute. d.talks started in Calgary in 2013, and we really wanted to start having a more public discussion and conversation about design and the value of design. Throughout the years, we've hosted international ideas competitions, we've written a zine on movement, we've collaborated with the city and many international artists, architects, and designers to really bring that conversation to Calgary. This year was our 11th year of programming, which was really exciting for us. And we've done a little bit of a pivot where, you know, in the past we've talked a lot about city planning and architecture more specifically, and we're now broadening our conversation into the design realm more broadly. And by doing that, it's actually been able, as a charitable organization, to allow us to fulfill our mandate a little bit more accurately or clearly, because we are now able to get into the public. We're able to collaborate with a lot of organizations who are doing different work in design and through design, and all of those pieces, when you start bringing them together, really start to have this collective story about the value of and impacts of design. So we're really excited about that, really excited about this collaboration also with MADE and with Edmonton Design Week. We are, here's a teaser, looking at doing a design week in Calgary for 2025. And so this collaboration is really, really important for us to learn, to share, to grow. And we feel it's only going to benefit the design community in Alberta by having a strong collaboration. So welcome. The topic of AI and design, AI is a hot topic now. And the technical side of design, I feel, is something that really, we've only just kind of scratched the surface in conversations. And so we really wanted to dive into it and look at all facets of it from many multiple perspectives. And so today we thought the best way to do that might be to do a debate. And so we have a number of people with different perspectives for and against. And we thought to prime the conversation, we would have a short video just to introduce the topic for you. So we're going to do that now.
My name is Geoffrey Hinton. I'm an emeritus professor of computer science at the University of Toronto, and I'm also the chief scientific advisor for the Vector Institute. So we're now at a point where the technology is working far better than anybody ever expected at this stage. We have these big chatbots that appear to have human-like intelligence, and I think they really do have human-like intelligence. Nobody expected that by this stage. We thought it would be much further off. I was very surprised at how quickly we got these chatbots that knew everything.
Murmuring Minds is an interactive performative installation that generates live choreographies in response to the participants. We have been working on emergent behaviors since 2007, implementing hand-coded artificial life algorithms such as swarming. These algorithms are wonderful examples of our exploration into classical AI. With the work, Drift once again brings these two seemingly different worlds, technology and nature, closer together.
Why should we be concerned about digital intelligence taking over from biological intelligence?
Because I think it's much better at sharing what's learned by a whole bunch of different digital agents who all share the same weights, and they just share the updates to the weights. And now they can learn 10,000 different things at the same time. But also, I think the digital intelligence probably has a better learning algorithm than the brain's got. All the attempts to find a learning algorithm in the brain that works as well as the backpropagation algorithm in these digital intelligences, so far those attempts have failed. We haven't found anything that scales up as well to very large systems as the backpropagation algorithm. So I think they've got two advantages. They've probably got a better learning algorithm, and they can share knowledge much more efficiently than biological intelligences can.
So just a little bit of a, snapshot into some of the things that we found interesting around the topic. When developing our topics for Design Talks, we usually reach out to our friends, supporters, people within the design community to help us ideate how we want to best present that topic. And Jasmine Polardi has been a very big supporter of Design Talks over the years. She does a lot of work within our own city, and then she does a lot of work abroad. And one of the things that came up was the debate that she did at World City around AI. And she said it was a really fun, engaging way to show the topic. And so we said, well, why don't we try and recreate that for our audience in some way, shape, or form? So I'd like to invite Jasmine to the stage to introduce herself and to introduce the topic.
Thanks, Shannon. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for giving all of us and each other your Friday morning for a very important conversation and discussion. My name is Jasmine Polardi. As Shannon said, I'm based in Calgary, and really what I like to do is roll up my sleeve with communities to ask kind of prickly questions about the future of our places and how we design them and how we really co-create better futures. And of course, this hot button topic of AI and the impact it has both on our digital spaces and our physical spaces. And it's an incredibly critical conversation for us to be having, especially in amongst the communities that actually hold the pen and really help us question where society goes, what does creativity look like, what does it mean to be human, how do we evoke emotion, both in soft and hard environments. And so as a design debate, a 1 and a 0, a pro and an against, might actually seem quite ridiculous. And that's the point. Because the fact of the matter is, any debate is a zero-sum game. There really often is no winner. However, today, I want you to throw away that acknowledgement, and we're going to play with this a little bit, because we know that when we have a conversation about an emerging technology or something that's making us feel uncomfortable, it is really human nature that we tend to either move into a pro camp or an against camp. So we're going to leverage that to our benefit today by having a conversation that feels really polarized. And then we're going to bring it into that gray area and actually talk about how we equip one another to dabble in this emerging world that uses language like disruption, and ask ourselves, what are we disrupting, and do we collectively hold a pen to build what comes next. And that's the thing when we talk about the future. As someone that spends a little bit of time dabbling in the world of strategic foresight and future, this acknowledgement, or at least kind of relinquishing of the sense of power as consumers and creators to say, oh, well, the powers that be are actually the ones that create our future. No, we all collectively hold a pen. And so when we're talking about something as profoundly impactful as AI, I think empowering ourselves, reminding each other that we all play an active role and can play an active role and don't have to sit back and say the future is happening to us is really important. So thank you for coming this morning with that in mind. So here's the rules of the debate. We have a pro-human team represented by Susan Carter, a partner with Dialogue, and with Dennis Lenarduzzi, who is a creative director with Berlin Communications. I'll invite the two of you up to take a seat up here as the pro-human side of the debate. Welcome them, everyone, with a round of applause. They're the real deal. They're biomass, they're human. I promise they're not bots. And what we might do, actually, Susan, if you could, let's drag this over to the side a little bit, because I think our various prestige debaters will, don't want us blocking the slide. Thank you. All right. Now, for our pro-AI side of the team, they might look like humans, but maybe they're bots. We don't know. We have Mark Cooper. He's an architect with LeMay from Calgary. Come on up, Mark. And we have Charmaine Muzuka, and she is with, she's basically founded a brand new collective called Creative, or Fractional Creatives. She's also from Calgary. Come on up, Charmaine. Okay, so here's how it's going to work. Like a typical debate, each side is going to start with their opening argument. They are going to make a compelling argument for their side, be it pro-human or pro-AI. Then each side is going to have an opportunity to make a rebuttal to what they just heard from the other side. Again, trying to lure each of you to vote for one camp or the other. At the end, we'll go into closing arguments. And then the future is up to you. You each have a small stick with a pro or like agree or a disagree, and we can hold those up. Now note, green might look like go or agree, but green is actually disagree. So as a human, and humans are prone to mistakes, double check before you hold it up. We'll use this as basically our applause-meter, and you're going to choose a team that you align with. And there will be a winner who holds supreme by the end of this debate. After that, no, exactly. Dennis is already in it to win it. Now, after this, we're going to have a collective discussion because, like I said, let's start with the black and the white, the 1 and the 0, and then we want to hear from all of you, and let's get into the murky stuff that matters, and then hopefully equip all of us with a couple key questions and a couple key prompts to go forth and have meaningful conversations with our fellow humans about this. And so, now, d.talks team, any other final things before we get started? No. Triple checking? All right, so here's what we're going to do. Now, mind you, we're working with the setup that we have. We're also live and everything is happening accordingly, so we will fumble through this a little bit as we've got one laptop, one clicker, one mic, and 4 humans. And so, how we will do this is we're gonna start with the pro-human side. Go for it, Susan. Yes, thank you, Susan. Now, Susan Carter's going to start off. Susan and Dennis each have approximately 5 minutes to make their opening remarks. And we'll start there, and then we'll pass the baton over to the AI team. And with that, we'll get started. Susan, over to you.
I have to figure out how to click. Look at these. Not quite sure. So, but I'm only human after all, so. Right, you guys can do it, but I might struggle. Aww. Okay, humans. We are very unique. We're highly intelligent, right? Maybe not as intelligent as they are. And we're highly emotional, and emotional in a good way. So we differ greatly from the AI side. We're not as calculated, computer-based design bots, right? We're humans. Good design equals human experience. So human experience is at the essence of good design, I believe. So look at the puppies. I don't know if they're AI generated. I had somebody look at them and they said, I think the one on the left is AI. Okay, let's pretend they're all real. Just look at the one on the left and feel it. Imagine what that feels like. Imagine him running up to you when you get home. And that feeling of joy and love you have for this little puppy as he jumps and kind of nips with his sharp little teeth. Just think of that. Think of the feeling that you get with a puppy and the love that you feel for it. Humans feel joy, love, and warmth. Humans feel love and strong connections. We build bonds. Look at the mom. Come on, Mom, you're not here. It was like a plant. It was like the plant. Yeah. Just look at the mom and look at the feeling and the bond and the purity of that little baby. Think of the feeling of the baby's skin and the warmth, right? Think of those toes. Like, look at those toes. It's just that we have to, we look at our feelings and our emotions and we have to draw on them when we design. So AI can help us design these buildings. I admit that. AI can help us with efficiencies. They can help us with the building code. They can help us with material takeoffs, right? It can help us do that. But I had a client say to me recently that there are 1 million architects that can design from the 3rd floor up. There's very few that can design from the 2nd floor down. So the 2nd floor down is where we live. It's where we really live. We do go up to our little slots, for those of us that live in apartment buildings or condos. We do go up there, but the life happens at the base. That's where we feel animation, and we see the animation. We feel the joy of connection. We crave connection. We actually need it to be healthy and happy. This is where the trees are. This is where the bumblebees are. They're not up there. They're not there. They're not for you to see what they're doing to those beautiful flowers that we smell as we walk past. This is where the shade is, and the sun. And the shade when we need it, and the sun when we need it. Maybe today that sun, as we walk outside, we feel it on our skin. We feel it. Just imagine the sun as you walk out the door. We feel the texture on the ground. And what about that, your favorite cafe? And the people that you go and meet there, and you bring your friends, or the barista, or the grocery store that has a pharmacist that gets to know you and gets to know what you need. It's designing space for this. So it's that feeling that you have when you're with your friends, with your family, and you're laughing so hard, and you want to do it again, and you can't wait for Friday till you can go to the pub or go sit on a patio in the trees, twinkly lights above. This is what we strive to achieve. It enables passive and active socialization. This is the active. But what about that sitting with your puppy? That so cute puppy. You're sitting on a park bench in the sun and watching people go by and wondering, where are they going? What are they doing? What do they do for a living? Are they coming to Design Week? Maybe? Humans bring to design our experience of what it feels like. We've all had experiences. We all remember them. We feel them. We remember what it feels like, what our emotions gave to us. It's the experience of sitting in the sun by a pond and watching the sunrise. Maybe it's with your puppy. Maybe it's with a friend. Or it's the experience of our European vacation for those of us that are lucky enough to do that. Walking across a bridge that is hundreds of years old, and the texture and the age of the stones that formed that bridge, the history of who made it, who's walked there. It's the stories that came from it. That's what being human is all about, and that's what we bring to design. Human beings bring the need the need for green space, nature, natural environments. The moss, the protection that the trees bring, we need this. It's not an option. We need those, so we strive for it. We have to keep bringing it back. Or it's sitting on a dock with a cup of hot chocolate. I had to say that, I meant to say wine, but pretend it's the wine. With a crackling fire, watching the sun set and the water, the stillness of that water. It's quite magical, and your best friend sitting next to you having a really good conversation. So the best designers, if we tap into our emotion, are human.
Leo Fender was a radio repairman from Southern California who saw that the future of music was in the electrification of instruments. As the founder of Fender Musical Instrument Corporation, he created the iconic Telecaster and Stratocaster guitars. In 1951, Fender released the first commercially successful electric bass guitar. It was intended to solve the problems experienced by players of the big, bulky acoustic double bass. Rock and roll was still a few years away, but bass players needed an instrument that could keep up with the loud drummers and the horn sections of the big bands of the day. But in a classic case of cart before the horse, there were no bass amps to complement this new bass. So Fender and his team got busy, and 1 year later released the Fender Bassman amplifier. It was designed specifically for the electric bass, and it was a dud. Bass players just couldn't get into it. Sure, it was loud enough, but bass notes need to be pure and clean. The problem with this amp, and many amps of the time, is that they got their juice from vacuum tubes. If you turned it up too loud, by nature it would get noisy and distort. In fact, if you went to a music store in the 1950s, the salesperson would likely say, "Yep, great amp, but don't turn it up past 5. Gets real noisy, distorts." Leo and his team tweaked the design for years, feeding it prompts much like you would in ChatGPT, Gemini, or Firefly. It took about 10 years before they figured out how to make an amp, any amp, let alone a bass amp, that would stay clean past 5 on the dial. One day, an adventurous guitar player decided to plug into the Fender Bassman amp and see what it would sound like with a regular electric guitar. Dude, it sounded great. And the best part, when you crank the knob past 5, it would distort in the most beautiful, gnarly musical way, the art of noise. Leo Fender's world had shifted. The bass amp suddenly became popular for electric guitar players who were edging into a new kind of rebellious music. Over in the UK, it was extremely popular for a set of musicians who were embracing the rock part of rock and roll. Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, The Who, The Stones, and countless others. A fellow by the name of Jim Marshall had a music store in London that catered to these rock musicians. He couldn't keep up with demand for this bass amp that every guitarist now wanted for electric guitar. A combination of import duties, shipping from the US, and post-World War II material scarcity was making it harder and harder to supply the demand. So Marshall decided to open up one of these suckers and see if he could clone his own Fender Bassman to sell. It's a tube amp. How hard could it be? Well, it was pretty easy, and with a few tweaks here and there, the most iconic amplifier of the new era of popular music was born. Without this series of happy accidents, brilliant mistakes, and unpredictable circumstances, no Jimi Hendrix, no AC/DC, no Guns N' Roses, Kiss, Black Sabbath, Metallica, Swedish death metal, Woodstock, stadium rock, punk rock, none of it. AI is about failing forward and trying to achieve an ideal through a series of prompts and algorithms. Human creativity is born from happy accidents. We make mistakes, and then we figure out what to do with them. Cheese. Oops, honey. Left the milk out too long. Forgot. It's rotten. Oh, wait. Yum. Wine. Now, where did I put those grapes? Oh, dang. Fermented. Yum. Jazz. Oops, forgot the sheet music. Better improvise. Humans make mistakes. Humans love mistakes. Computers compute. Creativity is about instinct, intuition, passion, emotion, experience, consciousness. That's what formulates intelligence. AI is about math, tweaking algorithms. It is calculated, smart, but it's artificial, i.e. fake intelligence. What compels me to pick up a certain piece of driftwood on the beach? One that you might perhaps just walk by. Who knows? Why do we love to sit in a perfectly worn-in antique chair? Or spend tons of money for jeans that already have holes in them? It's because we see the beauty in the random, the imperfection. The Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, seeing the beauty in the ugliness, the awareness of the transient nature of earthly things and the corresponding pleasure of the things that bear the mark of impermanence. Similarly, kintsugi, the art of taking broken pottery and gluing it back together with precious metals to celebrate the flaws and make something perhaps even more beautiful. AI cannot feel those gorgeous, illogical, poetic notions that we feel. Humans are unpredictable. On a good day, AI is, at best, predictably unpredictable. It can't distinguish between good and bad, even if the bad is good. Because it is only seeking to not fail towards some predetermined ideal. These images made you laugh. Why? Because we, as humans, can see the humor, the entertainment, the art in these mistakes. I'm willing to bet you that if you saw these images framed and hanging in the AGA, not knowing they were created in Adobe Firefly, you'd probably pause to ponder the deep meaning and personal expression of the artist who created them. And the most important distinction, as humans, we can see what machines cannot. AI would just go, shit, I fucked up, let's try again. Why? Because it's called artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is just stupid.
All right, so there we have it, the opening remarks from the pro-human team. I knew when we invited Dennis that we would get the historical story of something. So the lovely thing is now you also get to tell the history of Fender next time you're at a dinner party, which is perfect. Thank you, Edmonton Design Week. And I knew for a fact that Susan would get you thinking about what tingles literally on your arms and on your cheeks when you're standing outside. So great start. Oof. Are you ready? Okay, you got to throw down. All right, so with that, the humans have had their say, and now it's time to celebrate, or so you say, the benefits of AI. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for those opening arguments. I too am human, and I'm enjoying this thoroughly. And thanks everyone for coming out. I'm here to tell you, AI is not some menace coming to steal our human spark of creativity from human designers. Instead, think of it as a companion, a friend even, that can help you turn that creative spark into a roaring flame of productivity and creativity. I want everyone to come on a thought exercise with me. Imagine you were a designer. Oh, most of you actually, that's not too far off. We're on a good start. You wake up and you're exhausted. You just finished a 60-hour work week last week. You wake up, you look at your to-do list, and it stretches off into the horizon. This is an actual snapshot of my to-do list for one of the weeks. And when you look at it, What strikes you is that a lot of these tasks are actually kind of mundane. And they're not glamorous, they're not the beautiful, creative meat of what we all really enjoy doing. What's more, often in your offices you'll have less staff, accelerated schedules, meaning you have less time to produce everything on your to-do list, and you have less fees to work with, meaning that all those people around you are already getting shorter in terms of quantity. The internet is abound with examples of this, and it points to this very fact. Design is fun, sure, but it is also at times exhausting, and we can all use a hand every now and then. So what if we were to consider AI from this perspective? Not as the big evil machine, but as a way to our salvation even, from the tedium, so we can focus on the parts of design that we love. It can usher us into a new era of creativity and productivity in a way we never thought possible. I think it's important to say, some people are worried, is AI gonna come take your job? Honestly, I'm okay with it taking certain parts of my job. The parts that are exhausting. Some examples of some things we're looking at in the architectural community that are honestly incredibly exciting and I think will be helpful overall. Imagine if you had a tool that can reduce your firm's liability by checking for things like code compliance or things like double checking that you have the right door tag and dimension in the right spots. Not something that all the designers thought they would be doing when they got out of school. Imagine all that time you spent summarizing hundreds of pages of meeting transcripts, if something could do that for you. Whew. Those machines are not perfect. It can even help you in some aspects of design where honestly, humans are not perfectly equipped to handle the immense amount of data that is thrown into design. Our world is increasingly complex. We have enormous amounts of data coming at us all the time, and AI can be a tool to help us work with that and embrace it. So things like daylighting studies, giving you instant feedback on sustainability metrics on your projects in real time, can help you not take weeks to go through it and manually model all this stuff. Things like climate, embodied carbon. Imagine doing this with an abacus. Get out of here. If you have an AI tool that will help you, I'd say it's a good thing. I had ChatGPT imagine my ideal outcome of this whole technological revolution. Look, if I can have the peace of mind where one day I can take a nap or read a book on a long drive in my self-driving car, rather than spend the time looking at the road, I consider my life has gotten a little bit easier. Over to you.
Okay. So I too am on the team machine side. And with a graphic design background, I'm going to share a little bit of my insights on the whole thing. So as a creative, I personally think that the barrier for entry on design and creativity is lowering. I know 12-year-olds that can edit a video that is suitable to be played on a movie theater screen. Something like that can be achieved in a couple of hours. They get to play around with all kinds of different tools because they're very accessible to us now. I think it's also, to play on to what Mark is saying, I can count the amount of days that I have spent editing photos, combing through footage for the right photo or for the right video for a project that I'm working on. You think of how our tools are so much more or so much less labor intensive than they used to be. Think about things like Photoshop, where you can just remove a background. So I think that it's honestly giving us new ways of creating that we didn't have before. In the video, the intro video, there was a little bit of work from this artist named Rafiq Anadol, and I highly recommend that you check out some of his videos because the work that he is doing, and I had to write it down, the way that he builds these data sculptures are through data-driven machine algorithms. So he builds these movable, interactive sculptures in really incredible spaces, and it's all done with data. So digital information, whether that's CPU data or it's libraries of Getty images that are getting compiled into something really creative and beautiful and different that is created by a machine algorithm. Something that we couldn't do even a year ago. And honestly, some of it is incredible. This is one of his machine hallucinations. And to be honest with you, it took me probably 3 hours to just choose the images that I wanted to show from his work today because it's incredible. And if you watch video footage of it, a lot of it, some of it moves and interacts when you walk past it. So there's all kinds of like cameras and sensors, and it's incredible. It's been blowing my mind. The other part of design that I think we're able to tap into these days is really getting to know our users. So when it comes to things like designing a website for someone, we often forget that there are people who use websites these days that are hearing impaired, or they're visually impaired, or they're colorblind. And now we can take a site that we're working on, scan it for all of its little issues, and even have a version of the site for a specific person, personalized to them, you know, when it comes to someone being hard of hearing or hard of seeing. So it's really unlocked the capability of like really designing for our users instead of just designing on assumption. That user data can really influence the way that we make great products. So I guess that all being said, I will pass it over back to the pro-human side of things.
Thanks, Charmaine. All right, so opening arguments. We've tapped into the ability to happy accidents to really allow for us to deepen and experience what it is to be human. We've explored the benefits and beauty of efficiency, so maybe we can grab a nap occasionally. And we've talked about that data as designers can also be something that's beautiful. I think we're off to a good start. We'll see if you're able to sway the audience in one way or the other now that we're into rebuttal mode. So Susan, you can be back up for your yeah, but.
Yeah, but. Okay, not puppies. Just no puppies. Okay, so AI can help. It helps Mark have a nap. Or pet a puppy, right? Ooh, oops. But what about intuition? Can AI do that? I'm not so sure. Would AI know that that's a little scary, right? We don't know if there's a way out. Our spidey senses, does AI have spidey senses? Does it have spidey senses? I don't know, right? Spaces that create fear. How do we know? We know, humans know, that this can be scary. Women in parkades, we don't like parkades, yet AI would design that for us. And it would probably look like this. But people get shot in parkades. There's somebody hiding behind that car. Oh, and right behind that column, right? We know those things. So back to this. It's places for connection. This is an AI-generated image. But we knew how to guide it. We gave it what we're aiming for. We are the ones that create the storytelling to get to this, where we can all create our own stories. The feelings, the emotions, the richness of life. That's what we can do that AI can't quite do.
I will once again be speaking from prepared notes. I started my career as a graphic designer in 1983. 1983. 1 year before Apple released its Mac. I forgot to put my glasses on again. I'm going to try to stumble through this first paragraph. I'm a designer that is designed before the computer and throughout the evolution of that creative tool. Back then, if you wanted a logo or an ad, sure. Give me a couple of weeks, I'll get back to you. I've got to think about it, make some sketches, order some type, change my mind, talk to a photographer, illustrator, discuss, refine, etc. Hey, it took Michelangelo 4 years to complete the Sistine Chapel, for Christ's sake. Today, I routinely get asked to make stuff within a few days, sometimes even within a few hours. Make it faster. Oh, let's make it cheaper if you can. What is the end game of all that? Patient with me? I was born in 1983. I am going to put my glasses on. Back in 1983, I didn't need those. If faster and cheaper is where technology takes us, what happens to better? My Mac doesn't make me better. It just makes me faster, cheaper. Spending time in here is what makes me better, not here. At some point, you get so cheap that you no longer have value. At some point, you won't need me or my slowly percolated and perfected ideas. We'll have an app for that. Technology, just like fast food, gives you the illusion of fulfillment. But really, it just takes your money, triggers exactly the right endorphins, and gets you addicted to things like bad sugars and bad fat. Yes, AI is a tool, but it's a dangerous one. It's not like a hammer. Being able to use a hammer doesn't make you a carpenter. But we are telling AI, one heck of a hammer, we're asking it to be the carpenter too. The Industrial Revolution promised that machines would take away the menial tasks so that humans would have more time for creative pursuits, invention, and art. What happens to humanity if we also hand over those precious things to machines, those things that make us human, personal creative expression, ideas born from brilliant mistakes, art? What then becomes our purpose?
Right, Dennis compares AI basically to processed foods. Sugars are bad for you, he says. And Susan reminds us about intuition. Okay, now for your yes, but. All right, Mark, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Love a good slice of American cheese sometimes. Okay. Good segue, actually. As long as machines have existed, there have been those worried that machines are going to come and replace us. It says William Morris in 1888, which is actually just a few years. 1983. Sorry.
AI generated.
Except there would be 3 middle fingers on the same hand, weirdly enough. As early as the Industrial Revolution, people like William Morris, leader of the arts and crafts movement. Interestingly enough, reading the whole text talks about the dual nature of machines. On the one hand, saving us and improving our lives through efficiency, but also warning about the danger of us just becoming the tenders of the machines rather than being the producers of handicraft. Same story. Happens to, repeat itself throughout history. This is a magazine cover, 1978, in Germans, when computers started getting introduced into the workplace a bit more. My personal favorite, the most poetic. I'll be back. Just like this quote, you can see the pattern emerge throughout time, and as long as there's technological advances, there are those worried that our human spark is going to be diminished. To the point where, this is probably the most recent iteration of that. Interestingly enough, when you hear Elon Musk warning about AI, spoiler alert, he's actually also one of his biggest fans, you can look at it with a little bit of a side eye, because the fact is, as long as there are new tools, it requires mastery of those tools. It requires human input to guide the algorithms exactly what we need to get out of them. So they're not coming for us. Instead, we just need to adapt our mastery and artistry to a new generation. And as for human creativity, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. We can all use a little humility sometimes, I think, just in terms of our human capabilities. Internet is full of examples where, our wonderful human unique spark doesn't exactly result in the best outcomes sometimes. So when we talk about new tools, it's all about how we use those tools, not whether or not they're going away. Charmaine?
That was fun. Okay, so back on the pro AI side, personally, I think that AI is allowing us to innovate and create and change the game when it comes to technology really, really quickly. People are able to create things that are helping people with mobility problems. These kinds of technology would have been maybe 5, 10, 15 years out, but it's accelerating so fast, and it's pretty fascinating to watch happen. We can go from an idea to a working prototype in next to no time, especially when it comes to digital tools, but even stuff like this. AI algorithms are suggesting ways to create new materials that we would have never thought about before that are cheaper and lighter and more, mobile for things like this. With the help of machine learning, I think that we can spend more time actually innovating. Point in case is when I was living in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver, the brand new multi-billion-dollar Port Mann Bridge was released to the public. Well, right away, ice bombs started falling onto people's vehicles because they didn't take into account the humidity levels when it gets cold over the river, and so along all of these suspension lines, they were getting icicles that were breaking people's windshields, which was pretty crazy. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of insurance claims. The human being approach to solving this problem was to drop just metal rings down each of these lines. So they were sending human beings up to the top of this thing to shoot these things down to break up all the little icicles. The actual solution that they're using right now is a really interesting and innovative little robot that was not paid for by the public. It was paid for by the company that built the bridge. Something else that I found really cool these days is that Duolingo just released a new version of their app. It is a real-time personalized conversational feedback tool. So if you're trying to learn a new language and you used the old version of Duolingo, it was cool, it was a game, but this way you can actually have a conversation and get real feedback on the way that you're putting a sentence together or you're explaining a subject. This just opens the doors for people to learn so much faster. And then you have to kind of think about our archaic education system. And the fact that we are super close to having personalized tutors for kids and adults, let's be honest, we want to. But I think about, even people that I know that have had learning problems throughout high school and elementary school and even into university and college. If we each had our own little personalized tutor in our pocket, that really opens up the doors to all kinds of crazy possibilities. So again, it's just a tool that we're using to innovate.
Yeah, we'll go for it. And on to final arguments from Dennis and Susan. Susan,
I have a final argument.
I have a final argument.
Damn straight I do.
We do too.
I'll be speaking from prepared notes today. There are around 18 versions of the most famous painting in the world. Scholars argue that perhaps more than one Mona Lisa was actually painted by Da Vinci. Most of these Mona Lisas were painted in and around Da Vinci's time. You see, it was a very popular exercise to emulate the masterpiece for students of Da Vinci and other contemporaries. Same pigments, similar brush strokes, all datable around the same time. Of course, no one has ever met Da Vinci to ask him which one was his. So we're not even sure that we might have the right one hanging in the Louvre. The original was stolen in 1911 and then recovered a few years later, we think. But none of that stops 10 million people every year from standing in line to see that particular one. Does it matter if it was actually Da Vinci or not? Nope. Because it's not about the painting itself, it's about Da Vinci himself. The painting is just a symbol of his genius. You go because you say you saw Da Vinci. If word got out that they lost the original again, but not to worry, that an exact replica, exact brush strokes, exact pigment formula, exact everything was put in its place, generated by AI, of course, would anyone still visit? No. So it's not about the art, the artifact, it's about the artist, the human behind the art. I'm pretty good at making burgers. My wife and kids, family and friends all agree. They're pretty delicious. The guy over here, he makes a decent burger too. Now, would you rather have a burger made by me or that guy, Gordon Ramsay, the guy with 17 Michelin stars to his name? If there were two burgers right in front of you right now, which would you want? Be honest. I won't be offended. Of course you'd pick his, you donkey. Now, what if there was a machine that could replicate the perfect Gordon Ramsay burger to a T? You put in all the parameters, like what the temperature was on the day that you and your partner first had that delicious burger at Gordon Ramsay Las Vegas, what time the dinner was served at, what the mood of the chef was in that moment, what the mood of the cow was before it gave itself up for your meal. Every single piece of knowledge we have about the chef and his recipe, gleaned from the internet, which became public in 1993. We missed 30 years of Ramsay's life. Regardless, everything, every piece of information that could factor into making the perfect replica of the burger. Push a button and out comes the perfect Gordon Ramsay burger. Pretty cool, huh? On sale, $99, Canadian Tire. No brainer. Honey, I'm home. Went to Canadian Tire, picked up the Gordon Ramsay perfect burger maker powered by AI. We're gonna feast tonight. Just need to feed a couple prompts. No, I didn't read the manual. Ring, 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 ring. Hello? Oh, hi. Oh, hi. Honey, it's Gordon Ramsay. He's in the neighborhood. Says he wants to come over and cook us up some burgers. What should I tell him? What do you think I should tell him? I don't care if he turns my kitchen to Hell's Kitchen and throws food against the wall. It's Gordon freaking Ramsay, the human. I think we all know the answer. Is this where I drop the mic?
All right, final closing arguments. All right, go for it. Okay.
You can leave that slide up.
All right. So, I have to say personally that I would very much like a small business personal assistant. Being a mostly solopreneur, collaborate with lots of people, but inside of the business is just me. So writing business plans, coming up with marketing strategies, building out content, coming up with website stuff, like you name it, it's all kind of up to me. And just going back to that sort of little education poke there, I can't even imagine if you could feed all of the marketing and all of the business books into an AI that you could just chat with. You could just ask it a question instead of having to read the thousands and thousands and thousands of textbooks. I think that really opens up some doors. AI can already do our taxes better than a typical accountant. AI can save a life. Just look at the innovations in healthcare right now. It can act as an assistant, a junior marketer, and just wait until we have our robots doing our laundry and our dishes and cleaning our toilets. Speaking of sewer systems, I don't know if anyone remembers this guy from TV in the 90s, but there are now robots that go down into our sewer systems, scan what's going on, clear things out, and suggest new tools and systems to be able to not end up with a job like this. So that's where I'm going to leave it for Mark to close us off.
Okay. Let me ask you guys this. Did painting die when photography was invented? You no longer needed a photorealistic portrait. No. Instead, painters shifted to a new era of painting. Impressionism came up. The whole modern art movement arose out of this reaction to machinery and gave us some of the most compelling works of the century we live in today. Did animation die when we got 3D tools to model characters for us rather than spending hundreds of hours drawing each frame by hand? No. We got masterpieces like A Toy Story or Up. Tell me those are not gems of creativity that have been allowed to us from technology. No one is sad that we're not making blueprints with ammonia anymore. Instead of draftspeople, we have a technologist team in our office, people that are adapting to the tools. The jobs don't go away, the human creativity doesn't dissipate. Instead, you just learn how to use the tools that are ahead of you today. Like it or not, AI is here to stay. It's part of the fixture, it's part of the landscape. No one's putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Similarly, the ways we work are continuing to evolve every day. If AI means the difference between rows and rows of drafting tables versus letting me work in my pajamas a couple days a week, I say bring it on.
All right, so the pro AI side is really leaning into the beauty of efficiency and getting rid of the dirty jobs, whereas the pro human side is maybe asking us, if everyone that inputs the data into systems looks like this, then maybe we get algorithmic places and spaces. So now it's up to you. Are you pro-human? It is only humans that know the human experience, know how to tap into emotion and existentially understand who we are and what the human condition and experience needs to be. And so therefore, designing memorable experiences that make us feel all the feels, whether it's puppies or burgers, or is it the promised land of snoozing behind your car, of having AI understand who you are so that it can take on all those pesky administrative tasks and release you to be the creative you know you are and not be bogged down by the bullshit. So, now is your time to decide. I want you to take a moment. Remember, green is disagree, which is, I believe that I am pro AI. I agree or disagree that AI releases me as a designer to be the best I am, or you disagree and you think that we need to put humans first and put that genie a little bit back in the bottle and put humans ahead. So agree is pro AI, disagree is let's put the humans first. Take a moment, take a moment, take a moment, take a moment. All right. And reveal. Oh, My goodness. Many agrees. Okay, it looks, ooh, it's almost 50-50. Dennis is like trying to scan and be like, can you sway this slightly? Yeah, he's throwing it down, out the door. He's having human emotions right now. Okay, marvelous. This is fantastic. And I'm not surprised by essentially a 50-50 split. And the fact of the matter is, we touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but we live in a world of gray. And with every new technological advancement, Mark did a really good job reminding us, this wave of fear happens. What does this mean for our role? What does this mean for what we deem ourselves to be masters at? And it really creates a whole new environment that we need to kind of recalibrate who we are, what we do, how we connect with each other, how we use the tools, where are we going, what does future look like? Now, the difficult thing when we talk about the future is we tend to kind of cast forward, let's now talk about 2050. The moment we kind of say, here's the tools, what are things going to look like, flying cars, otherwise holograms, robots that take care of my family so I don't have to clean the kitchen. But what we actually need to do is ask ourselves, what do we want it to look like 3 years from now? What do we want it to look like 5 years from now? And then I want all of you, when you get back to your office, whether it's in your pajamas at home on the couch with the Zoom screen from here, or whether it's at a table in an office, I want you to do a quick matrix. And one is, I want you to think about AI and a lot of the things that are being enabled by AI. So let's just even talk about it as emerging technologies that are impacting all of us as designers, whether we're architects, whether we're graphic designers, and the whole menage in between as creators. And I want you to kind of go from one side to the other, and I want you to talk about how you feel and map where you feel about emerging technologies. One side is, I feel really uncomfortable. One side is, I feel really hopeful. I want you to list some of those technologies, or even applications. And then I want you, on the up and down, the vertical, is I want you to start mapping with those technologies, which ones do you feel you have the most control over or that you can actually impact? That would come up here. I've got the ability to impact the future with this, or down here, I'm not the one that has the ability to impact. And usually that means I feel like the smaller power that be, and that there's other powers that impact that more. Sometimes it's just a really good exercise when it actually comes to this, to actually say, am I having a fear-based reaction, but do I actually have a lot more control over these tools and how that affects my daily life, my career, the world around me? So with that, I want one more show of hands. Number one is, who believes Edmonton to be an incredibly creative city? Every time I come here, I just marvel at it. You can actually feel it, to the point of humans and Susan's argument that intuition and the sense of feels that we can really pick things up. Every time I step into the city, I can feel it as a very welcoming and very creative city. It oozes out of the pores of the people that are here. Put your hand up if you believe and understand that Edmonton is also a global head of AI. Okay, so we're actually, for those that might not know, we're just a stone's throw away from AMI, which is the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. Edmonton, and it is a shocker to many people in Silicon Valley. They're like, what, who, huh? People from Google DeepMind, as many other researchers around the future of artificial intelligence, have chosen to make the frigid tundra up here in the place that we call home their home as well. They've come up here to be amongst other community members that are leading this forward. So my challenge to all of you as you move forward is think about the fact that Edmonton is a creative city. It's also home to some of the biggest forces that are driving the future of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and those two worlds should commingle a heck of a lot more. So I'm going to leave that there, and I think ourselves and the debaters, I want to do one quick exercise, and then I want to turn it over to the audience. The first exercise is I want each team to say something that they heard and reflected from the other team and agree with. This is like couples therapy. Okay, so Team Human, what did you hear from the humans that love the bots that you agree with?
Well, it would be disingenuous of me to not admit that I use AI, experimenting, dabbling with it, ChatGPT and things like that. I do appreciate that it does, make things faster. And if, the thing is about AI right now, and I think the challenge that we have is that it's the AI that we have right now, very much a generative AI versus the AI of the future? Like, what happens? Where is this all going? I think that's the part that the fear part comes in, right? But in terms of like generative AI and things like that, using ChatGPT as an idea starter, it does make work easier, and perhaps create the space, get some things out of the way so you can create the space to actually go back into your brain and, you know, and use your brain to be creative.
I'd like to respond to one each of what you guys said. Mark, I agree that it takes the mundane out, and it lets our brains do things that aren't bogged down by the things that really we don't want to get out of bed and put our big boy pants on for, right? And Charmaine, the AI image of the, I forget the guy's name. Oh my God. Like, if it allows us to go even further with creativity, but it's a human being deciding that. That person, I think it's a man, because he's human, he was able to get there, right? Because it felt like it. It's very emotional if you think about it. I've seen it in other images where it's in real life. Yeah. Oh, was he? Yeah.
Yeah, he does have a fantastic TED Talk. All right, Team AI. What did you hear from Team Human that you agree with?
Yeah, I think both presentations are honestly amazing. I think the key theme between both is really the beauty of human mastery is really the key in terms of what makes this world beautiful. Those human experiences and what you get out of it and how you use the tools, I think, is a really powerful point. I don't think any form of AI can really replicate that as far as we take it. There's some people who think it's headed in that direction, but honestly, I don't see that happening. And I'm optimistic about a future where, you know, that human spirit is really what drives us forward and makes this world beautiful.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of add to that a little bit. Like, I think human emotion and human intelligence and human creativity will always be needed. We're always, like, an AI is only as good as the input that you give it, right? You need to tell it how you want if you're building a photo, you need to tell it who you want to be in the photo, how you want it to feel, what do you want it to look like. Like, it's not, I don't think that AI generated art that's just like, I want a puppy in a park is gonna work, right? Like, there's no emotion behind that. You're not asking it to be emotional. You're asking it just to input or output something. So yeah, that human intelligence and human creativity is always gonna need to feed these tools for us to be able to use them well, and to continue to advance them, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, quick round of applause for all the debaters. And now, if everyone's open to it, I think we should chat a little bit as a group. And so what I'd like you to do is think about, maybe you have a reflection, or maybe you have a question. And the question can be, of course, to the fellow debaters or the audience at large. But just curious, what's in all of your minds? So questions and reflections, if anyone has any. Can you stand? Maybe that might help.
So I heard a lot about the sort of like personal empowerment of like an individual and things, which it feels really powerful. I love playing with the thing and feeling the power of doing all the things. But what I didn't hear is like, who's most empowered? Like, what's most empowered? Is concentration of ownership most empowered? Or is like individual capacity to do like people stuff most empowered? And to me, like, that's the issue. I don't really care if like my job goes away unless I live in capitalism and I need a job to like not die. So where is that? Where does it lead the power to? We've seen new technology come in, and where that power lands, and ultimately it starts off very idealistic and very like it's for everybody. Everyone gets a machine. Everyone gets to broadcast on the TV, and then it gets concentrated.
Yeah, really powerful reflection. I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts. And for those that couldn't quite hear, I'll try to capture it. This notion that every time that there's a promised new technology, the promise statement is essentially a democratization of something that actually lets you wield more power and control as an individual. But more often than not, as that technology progresses, it becomes a concentration of power and or wealth by a select few. And the promise is often flipped. So I was just curious, as we start to think about putting these in tools and these in hands and the promise, that democratization, thoughts on where that goes?
So it opens up more questions. I don't have the answers, but it does open up questions around, ethical things like biases, because it is computation, and it is, as everyone has said, it's what you feed it, right? So gender biases, all kinds of biases. If somehow we had AI generated results from the American election right now, gotta be pretty scary. Are those really the things that humans are thinking about in America? So that's one thing I think we have to sort of think about. And the other sort of thing, when you said the word empowerment, I was thinking about IP. Who owns the IP, like the intellectual property? Who owns the creative that AI generates? Is it the person or the people that made the machine? Is it the person that put the prompts in? Or is it one day the machine itself? And and I guess that's like perhaps a transactional kind of question. It's like, will my estate own the rights to the thing that I created with AI? But I think it's also kind of like a human sort of thing. Like, nobody owns there is no estate of Leonardo da Vinci, to go back to one of my examples. But there is the legacy, the myth, and everything that we've learned about art through honoring that talent for over 500 years, right? So I think those are kind of interesting things. Empowerment of making work easier is one thing, but what is that thing at the end, right? What does it have in terms of ethical, legal sort of implications? And does that disempower us?
Building off of that, I think the ethical implications of AI, I think, are atop of everybody's mind. Obviously, in the satirical nature of the debate, we kind of lean in one direction for sure. But there's real considerations, I think, to think about. As you mentioned, LeMay has a ethics committee looking into AI specifically and how we see tools being adopted into our practice in order to make sure that it's not just replacing processes thoughtlessly. So for example, the creative process, you can't just go on mid-journey and export a rendering and use that in a project. It lacks the inputs and the craftsmanship behind it that really makes it a good project. Same with making spaces for people. Like, the thought process behind that is really difficult to replicate just through the use of an algorithm. I think to the point of capital and empowerment too, and Charmaine, I think one of your points that I thought was really strong was, as small business owners, it opens things up a little bit more, allows people access to more production power than maybe they currently have, or maybe a barrier where hiring 4 or 5 people just may not be possible. So you get access to a more competitive market when you're smaller. I think the flip side of that we haven't quite seen yet is where this goes from here. Same, like we had the slide about the Industrial Revolution. The promise was machines are going to deliver us from the tedium of daily work. But what we've seen is like the 60-hour week is still a thing. We just got faster and faster and faster at producing things in a different way. So what does this look like 20 years from now? When are we going to need to produce buildings in 3 days rather than 3 months? I think that's where it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Any other reflections? Fears? Who worries who worries about the sense of again? Dennis mentioned to kind of think about IP or ownership, but who has a fear that with the ability for anyone to leverage AI tools, who worries about your own material maybe being popped in to an algorithm for machine learning and being used elsewhere? Do any of you worry about being attributed for your work? There's a movement right now on social media of a handful of artists, be them photographers, videographers. Some are extremely famous, and they're doing their best right now in the social media push to essentially remove their artwork from the public realm because they're worried about it being scraped by bots. And then as we think about ourselves as creators, one of the reasons is to share this and to evoke conversation. And so, the worry that if we try to strip back what it is that we create out of fear of it being scraped by a bot and thrown into a database and then leveraged for machine learning, we're not really doing ourselves a favor either. And so I suppose, as a final note, I think for all of us that are here, whether we're pro AI, whether we feel a sense of worry around it as well, is that conversation matters, and that anyone that's moving an industry forward or communities forward is to use our voices. So whether it's in the office and it's an ethics committee, whether it's environments like Edmonton Design Week and having conversations with our technology and startup communities, whether that's things like bylaws or rules when it comes to even things like art and design contests, which people have been aghast at the fact that some AI-generated work has won over people that have felt like they have spent their time and their mastery entering a piece that's taken them months, maybe even years to create. So these are important questions and conversations. And whenever we step back and just think that the future is happening to us, then it does happen to us. And typically it happens to us created by people that look a certain way and have a bank account of a certain size. And so the way that we create a more dynamic future, and I think the beauty of all of you here who are creators and designers, is that we hold a mirror up to society. Our job is to provoke. Our job is to show what it means to be human and different and diverse. And so bring that voice into every conversation. AI is happening really rapidly. We're also realizing that each time we train ChatGPT and the next release comes out, it's trained in a black box. So what does it look like kind of open source creativity? So that's the question for all of you. I hope you continue the debate at the dinner table, at the office, around the water cooler, or on Zoom. And our debaters are here if you want to chat with them. Thank you for coming, and thanks to d.talks.